We're crossing live now to Westminster to talk to the Shadow Paymaster General, Richard Holden. Good to see you this morning, Mr. Holden. And can I start by asking you about this letter that you have posted on X, which is addressed to Sir Keir Starmer about a voice coach that he used during lockdown? Just tell us about that letter.
So this comes from an article in the Sunday Times, which is about a book that's been written by two journalists about Keir Starmer and his path to Downing Street. And in it there's this unusual revelation in which on the 24th of December in 2020, so when lockdown was really at its height, when London was in Tier 4, which said that people should not go to work unless they absolutely had to, and they were a key worker specifically. And also that people could only meet in bubbles outside for social reasons. And he's been very, very critical, obviously, and people will know of the way he responded to Boris Johnson and others during that period. It now appears that he had a voice coach into Labour HQ on Christmas Eve that year. So it's really reignited that entire question. And the real issue behind this is that Keir Starmer really did go out there demanding that everybody was held to the highest possible account at every stage. And now it looks like there are big questions for him to answer, which is why we want an independent investigator to be appointed. And I also want to know what does the Prime Minister thinks about whether this is a breach of the rules itself.
I'm interested to hear what you think. Couldn't you regard, or why wouldn't you regard, a voice coach for the newly elected Prime Minister as an essential worker?
Yeah, no, perfectly fair question. I just don't think that essentially what that is acting classes were essential. We didn't either as a country, because we basically stopped those in-person university courses across the piece as well. And it's also quite clear that at the time that the Labour Party didn't think so, because they also had virtual meetings with her and things like that. They are mentioned in this book as well. So there's a real question over, no, it's not really what I interpreted it as, but what Labour interpreted it as at the time. And it's quite odd, some of the phrasing in this book from some of those senior Labour officials who were involved at the time, saying, well, we considered her to be a key worker, or Keir thought she was a key worker for him. I mean, we all know that Sir Keir's got that very strange nasal sort of adenoidal issue with his voice, so he might have considered it very important. Whether or not the country did when they were all locked down, I think is the question at the heart of the matter here.
It's a question I'd like to put out to our listeners and viewers today as well. How essential do you think it would have been for the Prime Minister to have had voice coaching and acting lessons about how to project himself during COVID? He wasn't Prime Minister then. No, he wasn't Prime Minister then.
Opposition then. gbnews.com/you'll say, let us know what you think. Mr. Holden, do you think this is a good use of your time and resources as a member of the opposition to be harping back to 5 years ago and looking at what Sir Keir Starmer was doing with his voice coach? Because we've got pensioners without their winter fuel payments, we've got farmers who are on the breadline, we've got the threat of tariffs from Trump, we've got a stuttering economy. Is this really where you should be focusing your energies right now?
But you had a stuttering leader of the opposition then as well. He was stuttering too, that was the problem.
These are these are perfectly fair questions. Look, I think we can do more than one thing at once. We're out there every day challenging the government on its plans for the moment. Mel Stride's out talking about the economy every day. Kemi's been out there really pushing forwards the case for change. I think on the other side, though, it's really important that the Prime Minister, who when he was leader of the opposition, this was something he absolutely hammered everybody on. You know, he had that holier than thou approach to all of these issues. I think he needs to be held to account. He's the one who has said, you know, this was a major issue. He would resign as leader of the Labour Party if he was found to have broken COVID rules. Well, let's have that proper investigation. He should be calling for it himself. He should be referring himself, just like Boris Johnson did with Sue Gray. And I think it's important that those that we actually know what happened and when it happened.
All right, Mr. Holden, we're almost out of time with you. Just did want to ask you about how concerned you are about tariffs from President Trump. He said that they will definitely happen with the European Union. Peculiar timing, I'm sure you're going to say that Sir Keir Starmer is going for dinner at an EU summit tonight in Brussels with the threat of tariffs looming over his head.
Look, I am very concerned about this, especially given what the budget with Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer have done to our economy already. We've seen unemployment, really that thing which actually over the last few years we've really got under control. We've seen that, real worries about the jobs market there, with employers cutting jobs all over the place at the moment, vacancy rates falling across the country. The last thing we want to see is tariffs, and this isn't. I really do worry about Keir Starmer on this, because he's always wanted to be as close to the European Union as possible. We always remember he wanted that second referendum, and what I want to see is British workers put first and protected, and our economy thrive. And it's quite clear with the decisions they've already taken, whether it's on family farms, on the jobs tax, on so many other issues, that they're not going to put our economy and our jobs first, and I really worry about this as well.
Okay. Mr. Holden, thank you for your time this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Mr. Catherine, I'm going to give you the green light. Things are going to be obviously you get green or red, and that's simple enough, isn't it? I mean, red for stop, green for go. You can go, and that's really what you're trying to do for parents with these schools, isn't it? To say, this is obvious, this is how the school ranks.
So this is Ofsted's report card that it's consulting on, and obviously it's open to views and feedback, but fundamentally it will form a really important part of reforms that we're looking to bring about as a government to really drive standards and improved outcomes for children right up and down the country. We know that too many children still aren't getting the education standard that they should. 1 in 3 leave primary school without the fundamentals in reading, writing and maths. We know that far too many children are missing school, 1 in 5 regularly missing school. And we know that there's a really persistent disadvantage gap that is just not closing. So these report cards will provide a really important tool in the box to drive better standards for children right across the country.
Right, well, it hasn't had the best reaction, has it? The unions have said you failed to deliver. This is making things worse, not better. The sister, Ruth Perry, who's the head teacher who very sadly took her life after an Ofsted inspection, said it was a rehash of a dangerous system. And we were speaking to an Ofsted inspector earlier who said he's making it unnecessarily complicated. So how is this new system actually going to improve education for our children?
So what we had before was a very blunt system where you had a one-word judgment that rated a school. This will give a much more granular insight into what a school is doing well, and I think that's really important to celebrate and for parents to know, but also where a school has room to improve or needs improvement, and it will put a real spotlight on those challenges to make sure that we can drive those improvements and support schools to achieve better outcomes for children, which is fundamentally what all schools and teachers want to see.
Sorry to interrupt you, but is this not as blunt and as reductive as words were? It's numbers instead of words. It's still blunt. Quite the contrary. It's looking at a whole broad range of measures. So the proposal is for 9 different areas to look at, and that's from the support that teachers are getting to develop, to the quality of the curriculum that's being delivered, to inclusion and making sure that children with special educational needs and disabilities are included within the school, and attendance and behaviour. And so where a school is really doing well on these issues, then other schools in the local area will be able to see that, and they can share best practice. But where a school really needs to improve, it provides a really diagnostic approach to how to tackle those issues. And Ofsted will also be making sure that schools have all that information, and information is power, and that is the power for schools to drive their own improvement and give better outcomes to children.
Well, you know who loves the power? Donald Trump loves the power, Catherine, so he does. What do you think about, when you talk about behaviour and attitude and whatever, do you think we've got to change that in any way towards America? And what I'm getting at is, his inference is, if we don't, he's going to slap you with a red or a green tariff.
So, I mean, we have a really important relationship with the United States. They're a key ally of ours. They're also a really key trading partner. We have about £300 billion worth of trade with the United States. We are the biggest investor in the United States. They are the biggest investor in the UK, £1.2 trillion invested in one another economies. And it's really important that we continue to build that relationship and build strong relationships with all of our trading partners, because fundamentally that's how we will continue to make things, to grow, and then invest in our public services like our schools.
Why then, when the threat of tariffs is over his head, is Sir Keir Starmer going for a cosy dinner with the EU in Brussels tonight?
So it's really important that, yes, we build and continue to build on those strong relationships with the United States, but also that we continue to build strong relationships with our nearest neighbours and strongest trading partners as well. And I think Keir Starmer's taking a really mature and grown-up approach after the chaos that we've seen for far too many years of just building really solid relationships with our allies, with our partners, because they are partners not just in trade, but in national security and defence as well. And it's really important that we continue to build all of these relationships that guarantee our national prosperity and security.
Is it not a benefit of Brexit, though, that we would be exempt from tariffs that are being slapped on the EU? It's just very strange timing that Keir Starmer would then decide to go for this cosy dinner, which won't even be a warm reception. We've been told that President Macron is going to say that Sir Keir Starmer's appearance at that dinner is a sign that Brexit has failed.
I mean, fundamentally, we inherited a terrible Brexit deal that the last government negotiated. So whilst there's no returning to the customs union, the single market or freedom of movement, we do need to improve that deal. We need to improve our trading relations. We need to break down barriers to trade where we can. And so it's important that we continue to build and develop those relationships that would enable us to do that. And I think we don't need to choose between the United States and our European partners. We are all part of NATO. We're all part of a fundamental defence alliance, and will continue to work in partnership with all of our allies and our trading partners in Britain's interest.
Well, Catherine McKinnell, green card to you. Thank you very much indeed.